Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 195. As always, I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it is great to be with you again. My guest this episode is none other than my pal Trevor from the band The Black Dahlia Murder, who will release their new studio album, Verminous, on April 17th. Now, The Black Dahlia Murder really needs no introduction. For 2 decades now, the band has been redefining death metal, so much so that they have this fervent following who supports them at every turn, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. We'll also get into the new music, of course, as well as what it's like to promote an album during the pandemic. But this episode of Inside Music is for the fans, and I really think you're going to enjoy it. But before we get there, I do need to remind you that this episode of the show and every episode of Inside Music is brought to you by Holix, the music industry's leading promotional distribution platform. You can use Holix to promote your music with the same tools that the Black Dahlia Murder, Slipknot, Tool, and thousands more use. Just visit Holix.com today, HAULIX.com today, and sign up. If you do, you'll get your first month of service free. And if you haven't already ordered it, I highly encourage you to pick up the Black Dahlia Murder's new record called Verminous when it arrives this week on April 17th. Now, if you've already done both those things, the only thing left to do is to sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder. Telling me this weekend, you tweeted out into the world that you guys had done some really impressive numbers pre-order wise for the new record that's coming out this Friday. And it caught me off guard because he was just like, it's really hard for any band in the metal world to do 5,000 pre-orders. And you guys did it mostly using like your mailing list and the community that you already kind of have built around your band. Are you blown away by those numbers, or is your fans just always come out in rabid force like this?
I am blown away by the numbers. It's amazing. I feel like it's definitely an uphill battle to try to sell the physical copies in this day and age in the face of the ease of streaming, especially. And but we do have a kind of built-in advantage with this our fan club, the Blast Fiends, and they've established a real kind of ravenous collector culture for everything we do, pretty much. So we have a lot of people, buying multiple copies and just like really rallying for the band, and it's kind of like a unofficial street team in a way. Like they're always like pushing for us and really doing stuff on a ground level, and it's amazing, man. It's all you could hope for in this day and age. Kind of a really rabid following, and they have like their own chapters of this thing, where they have like patches, like regional patches by state, and it's getting really serious. So we show up at a show, and the first guys there will be the Blast Fiends, and they're all patched up with BDM patches, and it's crazy, man. It's just like a really exciting level of fanhood that you don't see that much anymore.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's one of those things that almost has a life of its own beyond the band at this point.
Oh, for sure. Like we aren't involved in overseeing the group, we just kind of check in here and there. Thankfully, we have Kareem Peter. He's was a longtime tour manager for the band. He's running Night Shift Merch, our merch company now. And also he's been like running the Blast Fiends behind the scenes, and he mails everything out to them from his house. And he's the one coming up with ideas, do exclusive merch for them. And, he definitely enjoys his role of like kind of keeping tabs on that whole thing, which is great for us. Cause we can just kind of do our thing and coexist,
Absolutely. And speaking of exclusive merch, you guys have a Verminous slime pack. Am I saying that right? What is that CD release for the Blast Fiends?
Yeah, the slime pack was in a way a tribute to Morbid Angel did a slime pack with their Domination record, and Slayer did like a blood pack. It's basically like this kind of, it's like an envelope that has like liquid in it, sort of like a clear plastic kind of envelope that has like slimy liquid in it. And yeah, we did a few different things to kind of excite the fans and kind of ramp up this whole slimy aspect of the album. And it was the slime pack CDs. We also did slime-filled vinyls. There was only like 50 of those available to the public because they were such a expensive project and such a pain in the ass to make. They had to make them by hand, and it takes 2 records glued together or like kind of sealed together at the edge to make one. So yeah, between that and the role-playing expansion that we did, which is like a one-off adventure for D&D that revolves around the album themes, we were able to create quite a stink for the new record, definitely create some mania, some excitement for it beyond just the music and the art, but definitely good to be creative in these times. It's especially, like I said, it's especially hard to sell a physical product. So you got to have some incentive for people.
Yeah, I didn't even know pre-orders had launched until I got a text from a friend that said, I can't believe I missed the Black Dahlia's Dungeons and Dragons expansion. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, I have like 6 questions. You guys actually have a really good knack for doing creative merch or things that your audience really buys up. Has there been a idea you tried that didn't work merch-wise, or something that like you made 100 and like you still have 80 of them?
I mean, there's been certain shirt designs over the years that didn't really fly off the shelves, but I can't really think of an item that flopped. We usually there's a pretty good joke behind it or something that'll kind of sell it. We did these stress dolls of our bass player Max, who's like jacked. He works out a lot, and it's basically Max like making muscles, and it says "Show me your muscles" on it. And I don't know, people were all over that thing. It's funny.
I love it. I love to see that kind of creativity. And like you said, it's more important than ever, which brings me to something I just found out about. I hear that you are getting into the world of Twitch. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm about a week and a half in now. I've streamed probably like 8 different times. And it was something I'd been kind of sitting on for a while. Like I had purchased the equipment already, but I just didn't quite have the nerve to jump into it. But all this time at home and, now with the record looming, it seems like a really good time to be visible, be kind of omnipresent for the fans, and keep the band in their thoughts, by being present right now. And the community's been really nice. I was kind of apprehensive about opening my world up to another avenue for trolls. It's like, great, one more, social media where I, have to deal with trolls. But so far it's been really nice, really welcoming. And, in the face of our tours dissolving and, losing just tons of income for the year for the band, it hurts, So some guys are teaching guitar lessons over Skype, and, I'm trying to break into the Twitch world.
Now, I've seen a lot of different artists approach Twitch in a lot of different ways. So what are you doing? You do the traditional video games, you doing Q&A. I know Matt from Trivium does like guitar playthroughs and screaming things. Like, what are you doing?
So far I'm just playing old school Nintendo, and it's just kind of like me playing Nintendo and ask me anything. I'll talk to the fans, and we talk a lot of Metal Shop, but I'm trying to think about ways to branch out and do different things like that. I don't know if I'm brave enough to just sing in front of the masses like I see a lot of people doing. But I'll figure something out to do with it beyond just playing games.
I had the opportunity to do yoga with Matt from Trivium last year, and he started our conversation by like, do you mind if I stream this on Twitch? And I was like, do they care? And he was like, oh yeah. they'll like this. And I was like, okay, man, whatever you want to do.
Oh, that's cool. He's definitely smart. You know, he was definitely one of the reasons for me to kind of look into it a bit more. He just has been having so much success with it. And, yeah, you know, I was getting the push from Vince too. You know, Vince was like, has been trying to egg a lot of us on to getting onto Twitch, and, you know, just another way to kind of supplement our income. And, like I said, I think it's just good to be kind of like omnipresent, you know, good to be available to the fans, especially like a couple of weeks before the record and, you know, going into the album there. So, yeah, so far it's been a really positive experience, definitely.
Absolutely. Speaking to that idea of community, I know we've kind of been hitting this a bunch, so we'll move on soon, but I am curious, you know, now having a community like you guys do, this following so devoted, people don't kind of get there overnight usually. So Black Dahlia has been around for a long time. When do you think you really started to notice, you know, your constant engagement with fans paying off in this way where you had this super devoted following?
It had to be around the third record, Nocturnal, where we just really started realizing how ravenous the fan base was. And I think it was around that time that they began to kind of see us as a dependable band that wasn't going to stray from like the path that we set out with the first record, you know, which I think is a huge thing. I think that, you know, that's when you start seeing people getting tattoos of your band's logo, you know, because they know that you're not going to like jump the shark or like do a like crazy left turn out of nowhere on them. And, you know, we've always wanted to be a band that was dependable like that. We kind of looked at like Cannibal Corpse's model, you know what I mean? Where, they definitely make the best records they can. They're very passionate about it, but they also kind of stay the course with what they set out with the initial few records, you know what I mean? Where people, in a way, know what they're going to get, but in a good way, you know?
Absolutely. I'm a fan of bands like that as well. And I think third record, I'd never thought of it that way before, but third record is definitely about the time you at least get comfortable. There's always a little apprehension, like what's that record going to sound like? But if you do 3 in a row where people really put their faith in you, then the interesting thing is if you can get to 3 and have that kind of audience, they're more willing to go with you if you do decide to take some kind of turn in the future. I found, like, if you get past 3 albums, they're like, you know what, if you want to try something, go ahead. We trust you to know what you're doing at this point.
Right. And, you know, I feel like there is a certain amount of growth and change, like between every record, just like a slow evolution for us. And we try to kind of straddle the line between, doing what we set out to do with the initial record on Hollowed and, you know, adding new life into it, new elements and new rhythmic ideas and new technical ideas. And, yeah, you know, to keep it exciting for us, to keep it exciting for the listener. And, but yeah, there's definitely a selfish kind of want to always make more complex music. To play it live, it seems like every record gets harder to play live, but there's this level of satisfaction when you deliver those more complex songs. You know, it's a really nice feeling.
That's a really good way to transition into talking about the new record, because I was going to lead with the idea that you guys are this far into your career. This is a big year for metal bands that are really starting to get a large size catalog underneath and putting out new material. And I'm always curious about the idea of raising the bar when you go into the studio. Like, I imagine that your approach to songwriting, you've pretty much got down to some degree at this point. So what is the process of, you know, making it a little bit more, how do you go further with it? You know, how do you push yourselves in a new direction each time? Is it a matter of like, how do we make this more technical, or how do you approach songwriting as you get this far into a career?
Yeah, you're definitely right. I felt like we've had a Black Dahlia formula for a song for a long time, but it's really, you know, in our old age now and experience, it's down to the minutia, like the very small details of songwriting and the different choices you can make. And for us, it's about more dynamics now, just like trying to be less stiff and be more colorful and more explosive. And, there's a certain, like, if you're just playing as fast as you can all the time and you have a record that's just largely fast, it can become kind of static for the listener, like it's not extreme anymore when it's just the same level of intensity, it becomes like a like background music, if you can definitely overexert the listener, I think, by like just beating them over the head just so rapidly and so much, so I think if anything with this record, we learned to kind of pull back and relent at certain parts and kind of have more open music, a little bit easier to kind of chew on and digest at times, where we're just like not cramming so much information down the listener's throat. So in a way, like, it's less aggressive at times than Nightbringers was. I felt like Nightbringers was more of a barrage of just like attack, and a lot of technicality and kind of information crammed into each song. But with this one, in our age, I think just like letting it breathe a little bit, letting it be a little bit more wide open, and trying to really go for like an epic feel and a more kind of emotionally evocative parts. There's a lot more like melancholy kind of woven into this record, I feel like. And that's what we think about now, is just as impact. It's like not necessarily being the fastest or the most technical, but using technicality when it's right, and then using simplicity too when it's right, and just kind of it's definitely given this thing a new life, I believe, and was definitely some smart choices, but it wasn't something that we really spoke about. We never really have a plan going into a record, but I think that just the creative era that began with Nightbringers and Brandon coming into the fold as a songwriter and lead player just kind of gave us wings, like the success of that record, the excitement that people still have for the band after all these years. And it was intimidating to follow a record that was like so lauded by people and the press, but you got to kind of just put it aside and do your thing. There's two ways to kind of think about the pressure, like you have all these eyes on you and it can be intense, but then it's like, wow, we have all these people waiting to see what we're going to do. We have these like devoted fans that are just like waiting with bated breath for the next chapter. And, you can look at it that way, and it's more exciting, and it gives you that push that you need.
That's a really interesting take on this. And you mentioned wanting to have something that sounded more epic. And the first time I heard the album, the first song that really made me feel that way was Child of Night. So when I saw that you decided to do it as a video, I was like, all right, I'm on the same page with the band, because I feel like you chose this for a similar reason.
Yeah, that song definitely showcases a bit more what the album's about than I think the title track. The title track is more of a typical Black Dahlia song, a more like traditional Black Dahlia song. But with Child of Night, you see the man kind of slowing down a bit at parts. And, it's still very melodic, has like some interesting melodies, but we do different stuff, different kind of time signatures. And I think it's just like a more creative end product than we've ever had. And I think we spent more time just really looking at the small choices that you can make in songwriting and really tried to spice that aspect up this time, and it just feels like it's just the right lineup of people. And, we've had like this has just been like one success after another, this band. It's been such a great ride and such a snowball effect. It feels like, it's just been really exciting, and it feels like we're at a real creative high right now.
That's great to hear, man. If I could ask you about one other song on the record that I keep coming back to on my early listens, it's the Wereworm's Feast. For starters, that's my favorite title on the record as well, so it's nice that it works out that well. But can you tell me where that song came from for you?
Musically, it's very kind of King Diamond influence. Got a classic heavy metal vibe. And it's pretty rocking for us, you know what I mean? That's Brandon's kind of influence creeping in there. Definitely brings a lot of like old school metal flavor to the band and kind of an 80s vibe to his solos for sure. But lyrically, it's kind of an interesting story, maybe. We were joking around backstage in Europe. We were playing with this band Verminous from Switzerland, who are awesome. And we were just, joking around, drinking before the show, kind of getting our game faces on. And Alan, our drummer, was like, "Werwum," just like doing like a general Euro accent, just joking around. "You ready to see Werwum?" And then he's like, "Wereworm." And I was like, "Oh." And a light kind of just came on in my head. I was like, "Wereworm, I like that. I'm going to hold on to that, Alan." And, I started out with the notion that it would be about turning into a dragon, like transforming into a dragon, like a worm with a Y. Then I was like, no, I think it's a more interesting twist to turn into kind of like a minuscule creature, and have it be more like a curse than like this like powerful transformation, like every night the guy turns into a worm and crawls through dead bodies and wakes up in his bed and he's like covered with soil and he's like traumatized and feels like he can't tell anyone because it's just so insane, it's for people to digest that he's really just kind of torn about it. And I don't know, I just thought it would be kind of a unique twist on the were creature because everyone's like, I've done songs about turning into a werewolf, becoming this all-powerful killer, and I think that's really typified. So I thought, something a little different maybe.
I love it. I love it. And lastly, speaking to specific tracks, what is the audio sample at the end of Dawn of Rats? What is that voice from?
It's Dracula from a super old Dracula movie. Brian put it together. And it's kind of like we've had a quote from Dracula from Monster Squad in one of our records in Nocturnal. And there's definitely like a sort of vampiric slant to the band and to the themes. Definitely the third song on the record, Removal of the Oaken Stake, is kind of a vampire song. But the quote is... he's like the creatures of the night, what music they make. It's kind of hard to understand.
I picked up that it was from an old horror movie. I would have guessed Dracula, gun to my head about it, but I was still like, I don't know. It's one of those things I had to go back and listen to a few times, and I was just like, okay, now I have to know because it's going to drive me crazy.
Yeah, good old Dracula.
Good old Dracula. All right, man. I do want to ask you one or two more quick things before I let you go, though I appreciate you taking this much time to talk to me today.
No worries, man.
Everyone seems to have a little bit more time on their hands right now, so I assumed you'd be up for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Speaking specifically to getting the word out about the album, you guys were releasing singles. You were doing some interviews and big features in early March before everything shut down. But how have you found the challenge of promoting a record during this time of lockdown? Because I know there are a lot of bands out there who are like, we're going to push our album for reasons A, B, and C. And you guys are one of the groups that are like, no, we're still going to get it out there. So what's it been like promoting the record from this quarantine state?
It's in a way, it's like it sucks that we have to do this, like we're going to lose the sales that we would have had the first week by being on tour and kind of like making puppy dog eyes at people at the merch table to buy the new record, and also like people won't be able to go to the record store on the street date, obviously. So that's going to hurt. So, but, having all that content that we already recorded around March and stuff trickling out now, it's like, it feels like the perfect time to kind of have content coming out. And in a way, like, I don't know, I think this record is giving people something to look forward to. It's been hitting people's doorsteps now for like 2 weeks or so. And people are really excited about it. And, in a way, I don't know, I think it's just going to really cement this record as a favorite for people because it's going to like define this whole time, and So, like, I mean, I've been just maximizing press. I've done like probably 100 interviews since I've been back from South Africa. And, sometimes like 10 in a day, just like bulldozing it. But, like you said, I think everyone's available right now. This is like one safe thing that we can do. You know what I mean? Talk on Skype or talk on the phone or whatever. And, so yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like, it's a unique setup because in a way, it's the perfect time to have a record coming out because it's just like, there's time for people to just sit there with it. And that it has like kind of plague themes woven in it thematically, like just coincidentally, we had no idea a year and a half ago when we were tracking this thing that, this whole situation was going to come to light. But I think that's just going to it's making it resonate even harder with people and will, in a way kind of make the album define this time, this unique time,
And I think it is. I've been following the coverage of it so far. In fact, right before we hopped on the phone, I was reading Blabbermouth's review about it. They liked it. Don't worry if you haven't seen it. They're fans.
Oh, no, that's great. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, but they actually have a line in there where they say, this band genuinely matters. And I was like, I think that they get what you were just talking about, that you make an album that unintentionally feels of the moment, but also for your very specific niche in the genre, people get legitimately excited for the album. So I love seeing that you moved forward with the release, because I understand all the business reasons for not doing so, but at the same time I think you make great points where like people want something to spend time with and sink their teeth into right now, and you're giving them that.
Oh, for sure, and I wouldn't have predicted really that it could have been beneficial to drop the record right now, but like I'm seeing it now. There's just there's time to be excited about it. There's time for people to just really sit there with it. And, in a way, it's just, I think it's going to play out better in the long term, I think, to just be right timely with this record and have it coming out right now. And, we were lucky to kind of beat the presses that, the pressing plants that kind of shut down over here in the States. We got in just before all of that. So, yeah, we even started sending out the pre-orders way earlier than people expected, in hopes of like beating an eventual mail shutdown in Florida where our merch is going out of. So, I think that kind of helped ramp excitement up too. People were really surprised to see the record land at their porch 2 weeks beforehand. And, yeah, just like, I don't know, it just feels like a really big kind of swell of excitement, and it feels like a special time, even combating all of this,
Absolutely. I've spoken to fans where this has happened before. They get the pre-order earlier than expected, and no matter how many people may have ordered the album, when they get that album early, they feel like maybe they're the only one that has it. They're like, oh no, I'm the only person that can hear this record so far. That's just smart business.
I've definitely been the guy on the other end of that. I'm a fan first. I'm a music collector. I have something like 4,000 metal CDs. So, I always kind of approach everything we do with that mindset, Definitely, I would say we're all fans first. We're really lucky music fans.